Okay, listen to this. What you just heard was my track Moiré from my Numbers album. It's pretty cool, but it'll probably start an argument if you ask a musician what the time signature is. That's because Moiré uses a time signature of 3/4, but it can also be in 6/8 depending on who you ask. You see, 3/4 and 6/8 are rather problematic because no one can seem to agree on what makes them different from each other. What's my take on the subject? Well, you want to talk about 6/4? In order to understand the difference between 3/4 and 6/8, we first need to understand the difference between 3/4 and 6/4. Unlike 3/4 and 6/8, the difference is very obvious. One is twice as long as the other. However, there's something important to keep in mind, and that's how these two time signatures are felt.
Yeah, I'm just feeling it, man.
Just feel it, man. Just feel it. Stop thinking about it. Feel.
Just because 6/4 is double the length of 3/4 does not mean that 2 bars of 3/4 will be the same as 6/4. It's not wrong, but there's no real point in calling it 6/4. In order to really feel 6/4, we can divide 6/4 into 3 groups of 2 instead of 2 groups of 3, giving us this weird 4/4 adjacent feeling. As you can hear, this very clearly sounds like 6/4 and not 3/4. Because we're not dividing 6/4 into groups of 3, there's no way to actually hear 3/4. After all, the reason 3/4 sounds like 3/4 is because it sounds like 3/4.
Okay.
Now that we hopefully understand the difference between 3/4 and 6/4, we can now use this knowledge to understand the difference between 3/4 and 6/8. Looking at the two time signatures, the differences seem to be less defined compared to 3/4 and 6/4. I mean, they're both the same size and they can both be divided into 3 equal parts. But 6/8 allows us to do something that 3/4 can't do, called cutting it in half. If we cut 6/8 into 2 groups of 3 as opposed to 3 groups of 2, instead of sounding like 3/4 with extra steps, we get something that sounds closer to triplets. This is a great way to differentiate between the two time signatures, but an interesting problem arises when you try to show examples of this. For example, this one YouTube short trying to explain 3/4 and 6/8 said Metallica's Nothing Else Matters wasn't 6/8, while also managing to confuse the shit out of his comment section at the same time by not actually explaining the difference between 3/4 and 6/8.
Did you feel the difference?
He also said that time signatures weren't fractions. And I'm sure you all know how I feel about that one. You see, with 3/4 you're feeling all 3 beats, or rather all 3 quarter notes. But with 6/8 you aren't actually feeling all of these beats. Instead you're feeling these two. The rest of these beats are more so like a grid for other stuff like melodies and other shenanigans. Sounds cool, but it also sounds like triplets, and that's because it pretty much is triplets. So there you go. There's the difference between 3/4 and 6/8. One's triplets, one isn't. But that begs the question, what's the difference between 6/8 and triplets? Well, to answer that, I'm gonna have to give you a warning. If you are not one of these people, 1. Musician, 2. A nerd, 3. A gender ambiguous person who watches tutorial and or explanation style videos while having no idea what I'm saying but watches anyway because their humor is as broken as a typical Mario Maker tutorial level. I will advise you to stop watching as this information will not be of use to you. Okay, so 6/8 is 6/8 notes in length. An eighth note is half of a quarter note, half of a quarter is an eighth. You get it? While a triplet is actually a third of a quarter note. Why don't we call them 12th notes? Because apparently, according to Adam Neely himself,
there's no such thing as a 12th note, so how could you have 8 of them?
Yeah, sure, buddy. And because of this, a triplet is actually shorter than an eighth note. So 6/8 and triplets are actually not the same size. Of course, if a song doesn't really change time signatures or anything like that, there's no reason to care about any of this. Is it in 6/8? Is it in triplets? Who cares? Just feel it, man. man. But this changes a lot when you factor in time signature changes. For example, if we transition from 3/4 to 6/8, it'll kind of sound like the song is slowing down. What's cool about this is although the feeling of the rhythm is changing, the length of the 8th note is consistent. However, if we instead transition from 3/4 to 4/4 triplets, or I guess 2/4 triplets, it'll feel like the song is kind of speeding up. Pretty cool, huh? Something interesting about this 3/4 to triplets thing is that although note length is no longer preserved, the distance between each beat is. So even though it feels faster, the tempo doesn't actually change. Or at least the tempo you're feeling. And there you go, the true distinction between 3/4 and 6/8, with triplets as an added bonus. I should do a video on that, talking about different tuplets, like a video exploring how drunk quintuplets can be. It's almost like a video like that already exists and you should go watch it.